Hello and welcome to episode 313 of The Crate and Crowbar. It is the 26th of February 2020. My name is Chris Thurston and joining me this evening, Alex Wiltshire.
Good evening.
And notorious stick in the mud, Marsh Davies.
Hello.
Just trying to get you to do the voice.
Do the voice.
Oh, I didn't even make the connection. I'd already forgotten.
Do the voice.
No.
Damn.
Where are you?
Maybe later.
That was a sort of mid-state Animorphs transition
Yeah.
of the voice. Maybe later.
If
The
you do
voice
the
of power.
I won't be so angry with you anymore.
Are you angry with me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because what you made me do for the past half an hour.
I subjected you to something.
You did.
Something terrible.
Something
Yeah.
awful.
So there is no video games news. We now enter the third month of 2020 and nothing has happened. So we watched the first episode of Mythic Quest at the behest of Scoo, I believe, if that's right, listener Scoo.
Scoo expressed an interest in our opinions on it after I'd already quite mean about it to him on the forum, which I regret because obviously everybody's allowed their own preferences.
Yeah. We watched the first episode, and this is a TV show on Apple TV.
Something like that.
Yeah. It's a sitcom about a video games development studio, and you could say that sounds like the worst thing imaginable based on previous treatment of the medium in all other medium, in all other media. And
It's not the worst.
well, that's what I
thing
mean.
Imaginable.
It's not bad for the reasons you think. Actually, my quick take would be some of it's reasonably on point, actually, but it's just really badly constructed as comedy. So it fails at the thing it should be good at, not at the thing that's ambitious for the show.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's more interesting picking apart for the ways in which it does accurately reflect studio culture, studio life. I thought there were quite some interesting things there. I think one of the funniest bits in it is where a series of characters turn up to the HR lady and treat her like a therapist, which is something that happens.
Yeah.
And is also funny. And then horribly, horribly crushed by a giant lampshade immediately afterwards in a protracted bit where she says, "You're treating me like a therapist."
For the third time in the show.
third time, yeah. But, initially that was pretty good.
But then directly after that, it gets worse where they're in this first episode, they raise two of the big game industry spectres, of, harassment and loot boxes and utterly fail to actually say anything about them. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a name check for those things, really, isn't it, rather than actually
but, like,
dealing with them.
Don't bring them up if you're not going to say anything. Hey, oh well, what about them loot boxes? So anyway, here's a joke about a spade.
Yeah. There were other things that I thought were good about it in terms of reflecting studio stuff, like reaching content lock and somebody wanting to just continue fiddling with something beyond that point on a Friday at 5 p.m. when the thing's meant to go live on Monday. That's the thing I've experienced. Although, it's been my experience that sometimes people release things at 5 o'clock on a Friday and then it's just fucking broken for the entire weekend.
Yeah, like the need for people, for creative stakeholders to change something about a thing. So that has been enacted in some way. That's well observed. Like I say, it's such a strange mix because I found that the moments where it was on point were actually quite uncomfortable. Because it was like, oh, that's not funny. It's my life. And then the parts where it was sort of slightly off, like whether that's, the use of the word patch. Can you patch this instead of can you
Because they haven't
develop
released
this,
it yet,
right?
so
Like
it's not...
the notion that a new feature doesn't involve a certain amount of sprint planning. Like, you know what I mean? The sort of moments where it diverges for the sake of television felt strange. The fact that they use a mixture of the kind of awful sort of Blender / Unity store kind of demo thing that TV shows always use instead of video games, and then an equal mix of For Honor and Assassin's Creed to represent the MMO that the studio is making. It's just and a bit of Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's just really, really strange.
Yeah.
It's sort of, it's both believable and not at the same time. And I don't know, it reminds me of when we watched, when we were living together, Marsh, we watched, I think we had the same experience of watching the first couple of episodes of Kimmy Schmidt and the first couple of episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
Which are both shows that I just really didn't like at the beginning.
Yes. also likewise, and in fact, I said it was in the sort of Brooklyn 1999 category.
Space
to Alex.
99.
Just before we started. I think it's something to do with having, very broad caricatures, and then flitting back to, moments of being super real with each other. And like, there's this desire to have broad caricature and then having sort of like real characterful emotional engagement where those characters express their arcs to one another and they come to some resolution. And I don't know who's to blame for this, but they probably should be beaten to death.
Right. It's a strange, the other show it reminds me of actually is Community. And it's partly because of the sort of ensemble, the way that ensemble is set up. To be honest, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is the other comparison there, but also partly because like the old sort of Nebula winning writer character just feels like a lift of Piers from Community.
Right.
To a greater or lesser extent. And the whole show seems to be carrying the burden of having to explain all this video game stuff while doing really rote sitcom things alongside them. Yeah. And it creates this really strange, I feel like, creates this really strange situation where like midway through the first episode, Ashley Birch, who is obviously tremendously games literate, has to deliver like quite a serious like monologue about her feelings for a coworker. And, I guess spoilers, but like, that the joke is going to be that she's not talking to that coworker. It's either going to be it's so rote that you know where that's going. She is a good performer and does a good job with that. You know what the joke's going to be 30 seconds before it lands, so it doesn't land. But also that's not a thread really. It's just sort of hanging there in space. And it's also like, because she's playing a gay character, there's a strange sort of thing of like, is this somewhat a meta point? Because people are going to know her from Life is Strange, which revolves around exactly that sort of, not exactly that relationship, but that is one of the reasons that people were drawn to Life is Strange and to her performance in that game. So is this like a kind of like wink, nod at her career? Like,
I think it might settle
down. It's such
down.
A strange thing.
Like, the fact that doesn't really get into anything in any depth, and the fact that there are kind of industry traumas that are name checked and then passed over. I think maybe it suffers. That first episode is trying to cram a lot in, right? It's trying to introduce all the characters and trying to set things up for an audience that may be game naive. So I'm probably going to give it maybe 15 minutes or another episode or however much I can bear, just to see if it sort of chills out a little bit.
I didn't laugh or find anything funny.
Oh, well, that is a problem.
But then I don't find anything funny in Community or any of the comedies that you've checked, actually. Like, I just watched them stony faced. Like, knowing that they're meant to be entertaining, but without finding any of its peppiness amusing. Like, there's something about that whole kind of slate of segments.
I think a lot of it is like, those shows revolve around individually really good performances and individually really good jokes. Yeah. And like, it's actually like, it's notable, like, I'm not making the Community reference solely because of the presence of Danny Pudi, but Danny Pudi is a really, really funny actor who is not playing a funny character. His entire character is, he's a dickhead who cares about money, which just
he was the best. I think he was the best in it for me.
Yeah, I would say so, but not funny, right? Like, cause it's not really a particularly engaging character,
But he was given lines that I could see in a kind of abstract way were funny. Like, oh, okay, I can see that is funny, I was thinking. And which is what I do with that entire genre.
Right. But like, but also like, have you watched The Good Place?
Yeah. I watched The Good Place stony faced.
Good Place has got some good, really one-liners.
I don't find it funny.
I think it's got more kind of more sophisticated, isolated joke building that doesn't rely on the characters. I mean, there is a lot of character jokes in it. Chidi is super anxious all the time, and Eleanor's just a bit of a dick. Is it Eleanor who's the main character?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But at the same time, there's some pretty fucking good puns and things, just relating to people's knowledge of philosophy and stuff like that, which is just, they're just good jokes in there.
I suppose I just don't, this is totally a taste thing, by the way, obviously, I'm not kind of castigating any of the stuff for this stuff, but it's a style of humor which is like, I'm going to tell you a joke. Here is my joke. Yeah. It's about philosophy. in his
The thing is, because I would say that The Good Place packs a lot in. Like, it's about joke density as well.
It's
like,
very peppy.
right,
It's awfully peppy.
And it doesn't labour to explain the jokes like this does in the same way. So there is a good, I thought there's a good, games industry related comic setup here, which is that the entire studio of this multi-million budget game is beholden to the whims of a 14-year-old douchebag influencer. And that is a genuinely funny, also / terrifying and traumatic situation that a lot of people in the games industry have found themselves in. And there's a moment where he rates something and he just gives it 4 B holes and these little brown asterisks appear on the screen. And like, it should have just let that be and move on. But then there's 2 characters, he said. So he rates things out of buttholes.
So,
and 4's really good. And then another character
say,
says, wow, this industry's strange. And you're like, oh my fucking
can I
God.
Just say, I needed the explanation.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay.
I reckon that came out of a meeting where like they did it without it, and there was some dickhead like me going, "What's a beehole?"
Oh,
right. I don't know, because it's
well, maybe if you just said butthole, I don't know.
Right, but it's also like that whole moment is like that's kind of too much to be funny. Like it's not that funny. Like like given that they have this thing earlier about like they borrow time to dick or time to penis from PC gamer history, apparently, as a concept.
In
terms of,
It's Tim Edwards, I believe.
Yeah, in terms of how long it will take for someone to use a creative tool in a game to make a penis. And like, not to fucking script doctor this thing, but there's a setup on callback there where it's like they go to all these ends to make it, you know, they brush it off in the scene that they can make it impossible to make a dick with a shovel.
And then they show it happening.
And then they show it happening. And then all it would take is for that to be the crux of the episode, whether or not they leave this feature in because they're worried about, you know, their dignity as a studio is at stake if it gets whatever. And then have the influencer love it and rate the game 1 big dick. Like, done. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you've said, it actually didn't matter in the end because, you know, but instead they've kind of got the same joke from 2 different angles, which is the audiences are prurient and we'll do the lowest sort of thing. And that is then used as a segue into like the laziest fucking joke in the universe. Well, one of them, which is that, the old drunk guy on the team had some strange sexual experiences in the Far East.
Yeah, you could see that one just traveling towards you from a million miles away.
It's a rumbly little, like, wheezy dog of a joke that is coming for a treat and is going to die before it gets to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's its failing for me. Like, there's a novelty of seeing the games industry presented in a way that's faintly believable. It's got some uncanny valley kind of strangeness to it. But like, you would want to see greater just joke density, the confidence to let jokes stand and not over-explain them.
Yeah, just to roll back, I'm not saying that the B-hole joke is fucking comedy gold, but I just thought like, as just like something you could drop in the middle of his fucking video presentation and then move on, that'll be fine, but then
because what it feels like is they get to like the second half of that scene and they need something for the characters to talk about, but they don't have a new joke, so they're talking about the joke that they just said, which is an accusation I wouldn't level at The Good Place, which is usually almost moving forwards and moves past jokes really quickly. And sometimes we'll dwell on something, but just as often we'll leave a pun there for you if you notice it, or a visual gag, a slight gag in the background, and there's not really much, you know what I mean? There's not that sort of richness to it. Because actually Community as well, I think it's
pretty rapid fire.
It's very, there's a lot of jokes packed into each scene, so they don't all have to land, whereas this feels like every scene is hanging off what the joke is going to be.
Also, one of the strangest things about it is that there's the central genre of this episode is adding a shovel to the game, and the creative director of the studio doesn't think it's quite cool enough. But like, I mean, adding a creative tool like that would go down extremely well. Like, I mean,
it's a really weird kind of, like it's a MacGuffin of a thing, isn't it? Like,
but they picked the one thing that is
in the game, but
that is really fucking cool. And we completely, I mean, any
you tell
MMO,
someone that now they can dig stuff in World of Warcraft and people go, fucking yes. You know?
Right. Yeah, famously unsuccessful digging and building games of the last, of the last couple of years. Like,
it was, that was a strange, really
that's what I mean, the sort of uncanny valley thing. It's also the fact.
And then he kind of, the joke is that the creative director wants to turn this creative tool into a weapon. And like, and that's his kind of creative input. And like, through it, I suppose, we're invited to kind of think about the plurality of not only the game players, but also the games themselves. And like, you've picked the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Also, are there kind of a megalomaniac directors of his kind who are also completely incapable of actually changing the game themselves? Like, I think most people who end up in those kind of roles, even if they are sort of hands-off noodlers, I can't think of that many who are just pure ideas men who've ended up at the top of those kind of companies,
I don't
right?
know. There are quite a lot of writers who have done, but I expect a lot of them can script. But like there is a scene with him labouring over, oh no, we need more blood, and it's like the creative process, like kind of writ large.
Do you think they're kind of George Lucas types who just swan in and say, "I want it more green. Change that guy's head."
You see,
that kind of thing, or is that?
I think that would be. I think yes, but then because you hear stories of kind of like, like that.
Well, you hear stories about megalomaniacs. I just think there's a certain I think he feels more like a creature from Hollywood than he does from the games industry, really.
Yeah,
I think the distinction is that he's quite a young character, and so I think you do get people in the games industry who have made their name usually as programmers or
right,
but in a different era, so they can't necessarily do things in the engine that's being used now.
Yes, yeah,
so,
that's definitely true.
Like, there's a different version of this show where where can we talk about the pronunciation of Ian in a minute? Where where the main studio head guy is also maybe the older character. So if you're gonna have the older character, put him in the middle rather than off to the side, so you can make weird, boring sex jokes. Like, have him, if he was an older character who had kickstarted this tremendously successful MMO based on his old reputation, but didn't know how to implement anything himself and was constantly fucking with it, that is a scenario I can definitely imagine being completely real. You're right that it doesn't quite work with the setup as is, because there's like, how did he get into this position if he's just an ideas man with no other kind of influence?
Although he's, like the idea, like, I don't know. Yeah. It is meant to be a complex game now, it's a big MMO. No single person can have any particular kind of.
Yeah, right. But it's at the same time, like, I can see what Marsh is saying.
Yeah, no.
You have to have come from a discipline originally.
Yeah.
It's not clear what that is.
But then again, like, it has to also, the audience has to believe that sort of, it's a neat little kind of shortcut to, that Hollywood, image of the creative noodle who doesn't have any practical knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gonna watch any more?
I don't want to. I mean, like, I don't have Apple TV, so that's one.
It's a great weight off one's mind not to subscribe, because then you don't have to.
I think I'm curious about it, because I think obviously these shows can sometimes take a while to find their feet.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if, like, the premise is too heady for, because I kind of want to see it make jokes that land as games industry commentary. But does that fight its other purpose to be an accessible kind of character commentary where you can kind of buy the emotional stakes because they are sort of very universal? And that's so tricky, because it's hard enough to do a show like this set in a college or a police station or any kind of other kind of universal set of tropes, let alone this very specific form of media creation. Like we didn't even talk about the sort of raft of jokes about the testers having opinions, which is just sort of like, it's a bit of a sort of, it's like there are actually many examples of this not being controversial, but I guess it is for the sake of this scene where all of the characters we've seen speak are in the same scene. So that's really the reason they're there. Like, it's like,
yeah.
Also, just what was the conversation with Ubisoft? What was it?
Yeah.
Because
it's not the detail, the fact that, so there are all these, this footage of Ubisoft games, and then it says, the company is owned, like this development studio is owned by a company in Montreal. Obviously, Ubisoft is based in Paris, but like it's most well known, like it's best known from its Montreal kind of offices.
Yeah, right.
So like there's a sort of like a major nudge in its.
Yeah, I want Yves Guillemot cameo.
Yes.
End of season 1. That's the cliffhanger. I'm in.
But nothing comes off well. Like, most of Ubisoft knows that it doesn't matter if you don't come off well, as long as we get our stuff seen by people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many toots out of 5?
Pooty toots. I know. I'm not sure. Maybe half a pooty toot.
Yeah.
If 4 bumholes is good, I would give it 2. 2 bum holes.
Christ, that's 50%.
Yeah, that's bad in games, Alex. Pay attention.
True. It's really bad, isn't
Although
it?
they specifically say in the episode that 2 B-holes is good. A good
Okay,
score,
then it's,
so.
I guess, 1.5 bum holes. I think 1 feels too harsh.
Yeah, there are a couple of jokes going,
Yeah.
like 3 maybe
I would say 1.
across the 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a couple of saps, you two.
I know, Alex, but
Lapping at the...
entertainment isn't something you defend yourself against. It's okay to be amused. Like, it's not an assault. You know what I mean? Like, you're not a fortress repelling jokes that aren't worthy enough to breach your high walls.
Alex only
they're not
laughs at
even high
videos of
walls.
bear baiting.
There he goes now. Look.
There you go.
Oh, that's a really good one, yeah. Wow.
I mean, I can use that to segue into a game I've been playing if you like.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So, I mean, God, elephant in the room is all I really want to do or think about is the swamp.
The hunt!
The hunt. Oh, it's so good. Why is it so good? But we can't talk about it because of self-imposed rules. I will not be censored. And Toby Young will not let me be censored on the topic of the hunt. But I don't want to talk about it. I would like to talk about games that have plopped out of early access that I've been playing over the last couple of days. And one of these 2 games has been in early access for a long old time. And it is Besiege.
Oh yeah.
That
was
just come out,
great
isn't it? Yeah.
ages ago.
It is, and it's great now. So I played it when it first went into early access and everyone was talking about it. If you're not aware of what Besiege is basically Kerbal Space Program for Skaven. Is the way is the way I would describe it. It's a game about making very unlikely sort of, siege engines to solve a puzzle. I mean, this is like, a free-form building mode. So I suppose that's the difference between Kerbal. Like, you don't have a kind of clear, like, an easily graspable kind of interplanetary exploration sort of goal. But it is a very similar arc in terms of learning the physics of the thing and how to assemble parts together in a very granular way to build physics-based contraptions that do stuff. And whether that's, and then you save your designs, use them as the basis for other designs, learn more about the physics, get better at it. I have just got back into it and just finished the first island, which sort of, like, I built a cool wagon with a big sort of catapult on the back, and that solved a lot of problems. And then when that wouldn't solve the problems, I did sort of spike wheels and flamethrowers that shoot out the sides to deal with smaller things. Then occasionally you'll get challenges like, I don't know, picking up some crates and sticking them somewhere else. And so I ripped off the top of my catapult wagon and replaced it with a kind of winch hoist apparatus that worked nicely. And it's there's been a bunch of games like this, but it's a good example of that. The stuff that seems kind of cool about, like, I obviously I remember when it came out and people were building absurd things with it, like robots with pneumatic dongs that punch towers to death and, just, hearty stuff, hearty video game stuff. And from glancing at the Reddit today, that's only gotten more advanced. Something that's cool now, the big thing they added with the 1.0, release thing is automation, so that it now has sensors that can trigger particular button inputs, because you end up sort of with a mad map of inputs that your contraption requires to activate the various things, and you can remap stuff and build a control screen for the vehicle you're building, because you can build planes and helicopters and tanks and walkers and stuff when you get good enough at it. But people are using the automation for really cool things. So it couldn't be, like, the simplest example is like a sensor that activates your weapons. So your side mounted spinny blade punch arm spangs out when a enemy walks into its path or something like that, so you don't have to manually trigger it. But people are using it for things like automatic stabilization for like one-legged vehicles, where it will use the position of like different parts of the frame to gauge which way it's leaning, and then deploy ballasts in the other direction or move ballasts around it to kind of automatically rebalance itself.
Wow.
And you can see these videos of like wobbly, teetering robots that can now shift their weight to account for their stance, basically, which is super cool. Sort of, I'm building catapult carts, I should stress, but people out there will eventually build like a functioning human or something.
With thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Like, its only thought is punch towers to death with his big pneumatic dong. So that's a nice thing. Like it's a good little puzzle game. I think they've.
Is there multiplayer in it? Can you do Robot Wars basically?
I don't think you can, but you can build levels for other people. Maybe you can do multiplayer. There is a multiplayer, option on the main menu, but I assumed it was just downloading levels. But potentially that'd be kind of a fun thing. Actually, it'd be strange if you couldn't do that. Thinking about it.
Well, there might be a mad networking thing because it's so physicsy, like it's mega fixed.
Yeah, it's one of the only games I can think of that has a FPS really meter as part of its main UI. Like, just so you know when you fucked it. Like, but one thing that's cool about it actually is, so in a game like this, like any kind of contraption building game, you usually unlock parts over time, right? Like you expect to unlock parts over time. In this, you have access to everything.
Yeah, did you find that overwhelming?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Completely overwhelming. Like it has a fairly scant tutorial, which is like, here's how you do some basic stuff. And then after that, I guess the assumption is you just go to Reddit. Like, cause I sort of built my first basic stuff and I was like, I want to see what did the good tutorials say I should have done, right? Like for building a catapult and thing. And that was quite helpful. Like, oh, I could have put a, bracing beam across here and it would have helped with this issue I was having. So I think it's inevitably a balance of looking up other people's designs and then fiddling with them and tweaking things. And
it's so weird because when I played it in early access 6 years ago, maybe.
Jesus Christ.
Feels like it must have been that long.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it unlocked things sequentially across quite a long campaign.
Yeah, I thought that as well.
Have they taken it out?
Well,
I guess maybe they're just satisfied with the number of people who've bought it now and just like, well, anybody who's still left in the community probably just wants to get straight to the stuff.
I guess, I mean, maybe I didn't tick something or whatever, but like I went and clicked on, the little world where you pick which islands you want to work through, and I picked on the first island and I had everything.
Right.
So,
wow, okay.
Yeah, I have the same memory as Marty.
Yeah.
I wonder, do you know how it's done at launch now?
It was on the Steam chart, if I remember right. Like I saw it because it was fairly high at the Steam chart. They had a sale. Like when I picked it up, it was only £3.70, which is a big old bargain.
I always wonder how these things do that have been in early access for long enough that they feel like they've been fully released for at least a decade.
Yeah.
And then they're out. And I wonder if being out actually really gives them that significant an uptick in sales.
I think it would, because it reignites this interest. Like we're talking about it. You see your friends playing it and like, oh, there's that game I was always going to try it out.
I think so. A lot of this stuff comes down to when Steam will give you an update round, and like when Steam will pass you around the algorithm for pat on the head. That's how that works, incidentally. And I believe coming out of early access counts as releasing your game. So that gives you, that's the biggest update round of all, I believe. Like, and I think it's treated differently. So a normal update round, you can notify, I believe, anyone who, obviously people who own the game and wishlist people, and it helps with getting spotted.
Yeah.
Cause you can demonstrate sign of life, makes your store page look better, etc. I believe Besiege was in the new and trending column on, or the, new and top selling new games column, whatever it's called, on Steam, which is only possible if it registers this 1.0 update and the removal of the early access flag.
And I wonder if it ever will reach full price again now, or its destiny is to always be discounted.
I don't know, but I suspect it doesn't matter.
No.
The other thing is, I noticed it appeared in my Steam queue. Which to me indicates that I think inclusion in people's queues, or sorry, your whatever it's called, is your queue, isn't it? The sort of top 10 games to have a look at, see if you want them.
Yeah, discovery queue.
Yeah, the discovery queue. Like, I think inclusion in that can also be, set off by something like 1.0 release. Yeah. So, I suspect it will do well out of this. It will certainly.
No, I didn't mean that they were doomed. I meant just there's just unseen voodoo that, relates to sales prices and pricing of games, and it's completely impossible for me to know what the right thing to do is if you've been in early access for a long time and now you're suddenly released. I mean,
can I ask, and I hate to talk about the swamp, but I've been thinking about it. Did Hunt come out this month?
No, it came out last year.
Yeah, because it came out in October last year, right? Mm-hmm. But it came out on console this month.
Oh, maybe.
No, it came out on PlayStation this month. That was the thing. Because it struck me as really weird that everyone started playing it this month.
Yeah.
Like, everyone, apparently. And
well,
also, it got all of its reviews this month.
Yeah, I was wondering about the reviews.
And
one of the reviews definitely was only because Jim like Jim. Just
Right.
Sort of,
And so
but I don't know what about the Eurogamer one.
And so this is the thing. I was wondering, like, because it has really felt like the game came out this month, because suddenly loads of reviews were coming out, and it had this other launch on console, and everyone was playing it. And I realized, hang on, is it just because the year in games media has been so slow this year that this has essentially been propelled by Jim's love of the game? Because he, like, you know, that it sort of spread from there to me, to my friends, to, you know, to this podcast. And then that review on VG 24/7. And then I realized the only other reviews I've seen have all been UK journo types and outlets. So I just wonder if it's like this sort of...
I think it was definitely not really covered by UK press, you know.
Prior to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Anyway, I'm sorry for segueing into the forbidden.
I love the swamp, Chris.
Swamp.
We can always gamble in the swamp, you and I.
Oh, yeah, I just want to drown in it. And I have. Yeah. But no, Besiege seems super good if you're like just very fair engineering sort of puzzles and things. And it's funny when you fuck up and your catapult launches a bomb at itself and it's just in pieces. I got an achievement for making a machine that goes faster than 60 miles an hour, but I definitely got that by accident.
Oh no, it's out of control. Yeah. Oh good.
Well, yeah, like I didn't, I was going for throw bomb, not propel self.
My robo-dongs.
Yeah.
I do like it when you build like a big catapult and you've gauged the weight of the projectile completely wrong, so it actually just flips the catapult rather than propelling the arm forward.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's lots of good comedy in physics games, aren't there?
There is, yeah. I tried to build a slingshot with no real understanding of how a slingshot works, and I think I just created a device that rips the back half off and then hits the front half with it.
Yeah.
Good.
Everyone
nodding at Alex.
I want to talk about a couple of games, actually. I was going to talk about a new early access game.
Ooh, beginning of its
one
journey.
that is relatively dear to your heart, anyway. Shadespire come out.
Oh, Underworlds.
Just come out on the Warhammer Underworlds is its official title.
Yeah, I played a bunch of this as well. I think I may have mentioned it on the pod a few weeks ago.
Oh, did you? It's been out for a while then?
Yeah, it's been out since
lordy.
late Jan. It's been out for a month, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, it hasn't just hit it then.
No.
I think it's just hit my queue now then. So I won't go on about it then because I'm sure you covered the thing. But one thing I did want to talk about was like when you play a kind of a physical game that's been, computer gameized, like Underworlds or Magic the Gathering or any of the card games mostly, but also board games. Do they always feel to you in the initial sort of couple of hours so awkward and janky and weird? Because all of them have done to me. So Underworlds is a board game, but with a CCG sort of layer over the top. So you've got a hand of cards. So you're dealing with cards, but you're also moving stuff around on a board. And there are lots of sort of phases within your turn. So there's a bit where you're moving your piece, and then there's a bit where during that bit you've got to attack stuff or do whatever you choose. And there's also a phase where you're playing cards as well, and there's a phase where maybe you score points as well, all in together. And so in that CCG way, like if you play Magic the Gathering, like your turn is comprised of various phases, and you do certain things in each phase, and you watch this little ticker trying to tell you which bit of which phase of your turn you're in. And when you're playing face to face with somebody, that's kind of like an organic sort of informal experience, like a negotiation with your other player. And sometimes you forget what you're doing and the other player goes, you got to pick up a card now. In a game, a lot of it is automated, but the game has to tell you what's happening all the time. So when it rolls the dice, it needs to make sure you've seen what the dice roll was and what the other person's dice rolls was and like what the result of those two dice rolls were. And it has to tell you, you're getting these cards now because, because of this reason. And now you have to make a choice. You have to dump these cards because you're in this particular part of the game. And I find that really quite difficult to negotiate in when I've played a game that I'm familiar with in the real world on a computer. They always feel leaden to start with, and I totally recognise the importance of the game having to kind of communicate what's happening all the time. But I find it really hard and really off-putting for a long time. So I played Magic the Gathering online as well a few months ago. I think it's a really good version of it. I think it really works for me. But again, I had that same sort of, and I could feel how much polish and thought had been putting into the timings and how long a card stays on the screen before it swooshes away to give you a chance to look at it. But of course that time is never right, because when you don't know the game, it's never long enough. And when you do know the game, it's always too long because you know the game, like you know the card. And there are opportunities like there's definitely in Underworlds, there's definitely a fast mode.
Yeah.
Which is, I think...
They sped it up as well since it first came out.
Yeah, I expect, yeah. But yeah, and I keep misclicking. I keep looking at the wrong place on the screen to do stuff. I keep, I've thrown away cards that I meant to play because I was in the wrong phase for the choice, for the action that I made. And this is an early access, and this is going to get massively buffed over time, I'm sure. But yeah, I think that as a design, discipline, doing physical games on computers is a fucking hard job.
It is. I find it really interesting because I find all of that stuff quite a relief.
Because you're having to manage it yourself.
Yeah,
sure.
because, Underworld has a lot of phases.
Yeah.
And having that be kind of neutrally regulated by the computer so that it's just on you, the player, to understand what phase you're in. Like, I completely understand, for example, ditching cards at the wrong time. But you do have the information available to you. There's a specific symbol that says you're in the ditching card phase. Yeah. As soon as you've internalized that.
Because I'm in the danger area where I'm not looking at the prompts because I think I know how to play. Right. But now I'm not enough aware of it to know. And
that's actually a really good example, because that end phase in Underworld has a very specific order to it and has a specific order for a reason, but it's not the most intuitive way to play through that phase. In effect, it's the end of a given round of play where players have a chance to score objective cards that they have met the conditions for across the course of their game, spend points on upgrading some characters, and also discarding and drawing cards of both kinds if they want to. And the specific order that happens in the game, which is important because it changes the flow of information you have as a player. But it's the area of the game that I have most often seen fudged in real life because, there's a way it should go in terms, which is related to the initiative order of the previous round. I don't want to bore people about this, but the fact is, in a kind of friendly setting, I'm so used to people just going like, I'm doing this, and this. You're doing this, and this, and almost doing it simultaneously sometimes. Yeah. It having no bearing on who had initiative in the previous round. All of that stuff, including like discarded cards being visible to your opponent, all of it's actually quite important. Yeah. But in a game of like traditional Underworlds, if you ask to slow it down and do it properly, it's possible that you enter the sort of social dynamic of like, oh, you're being a bit rules lawyery there. So part of me quite likes that the game mandates you just do it properly in the way that the game is designed, that preserves the design of the game. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but it's one of those things that can. And so having the game step in and just structure it so that, I guess it does create a scenario where you didn't know which part of it you were in, so you accidentally
and to be clear, the game is actually quite clear about it. It has a little thing running along the middle of the screen, sort of going clinky, clinky, clinky from telling you which bit of the phase you're in. But I think it's definitely my fault and a hard design problem. I think it's also showing up Underworlds as a pretty finicky game. I hadn't played it for a while. I really like it. I think it's a really clever game, but it is awfully finicky. Playing it on a computer, by God, I was just playing against bots, but you have a game in 10 minutes. Like in real life, it's a good half hour, really. Yeah. It's really interesting how fast it barrels you along.
I think I said this when I last talked about it. It suffers from a few things. One is, maybe I didn't talk about all of this. One issue it has is that it's a game that competitively is designed to be played best of 3, but they don't commit to that for the digital version. So, it's not a game it's designed for best of 1 at all. Like, it's supposed to be a game where you discover your opponent's deck in the first round, and then it's about developing that understanding in conjunction with all the other mechanics over a best of 3. And that's a bit of an issue. And the other issue it has, I think, is rage quitting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because it's a game with lots of different kinds of variants, dice variants, card variants, matchup variants. Like, that's another reason playing multiple rounds of the game over the course of but multiple games in a match is important, because it allows you to account. Variance becomes a less significant factor over time, right? Whereas this is absolutely a game that you can be won or lost on the first few dice rolls in some cases. And so you do see people just go like, I'm going to take a punt. Oh, it didn't go my way. Bye. And then you're queuing for another one. But
Christ, yeah, because I thought it's a game where you can come from snatch a victory from the jaws of defeat quite sometimes, with the right kind of deck.
You can. It's also a game where you can completely screw yourself.
Yes, yeah, there's that. Yeah.
Like, you see this a lot with like people getting really aggro, and if the initial kind of aggressive.
It's very, very chancy game.
It's very chancy to be aggressive in Underworlds for various reasons. But yeah, like, so that's kind of interesting. I don't want to roll over your first impressions of it, Alex.
No, I mean, I haven't. I played 3 matches against the bot last night, but I wanted to talk about that interface stuff, because these are interface games. Like, if, as a computer game, it's all about interface. Like, it's a design game, you're just translating it. And therefore, as a game maker, you're thinking, you're an interface designer. And that was sort of super interesting to me.
It's notable that their goal clearly isn't to translate the experience of Underworld. It's literally a digital tabletop to play that game on with animations, right? Yeah. Like, you are playing that game. Like, the initiative roll doesn't need to work the way it does at all. It's got quite a weird way of determining initiative based on the symbols on the dice with a fairly arbitrary feeling priority order. It's preserved that, and that's based on the fact that the game uses only those dice, so they don't have numbers on them, so you have to figure out some way of rolling a certain amount of them and determining who got the most points. The computer could flip a coin for you. Like, that's okay. You know what I mean? But like,
it's funny also, because I can see scope to, because this is it's a competitive game. This is sort of along the lines of Magic or whatever, or Hearthstone. That's where it's sitting as a game. You could make a campaign, like string a story around it. You could definitely build out the fundamentals into a single player campaign. And would they do that? Are they doing that? I don't think they probably are doing that. But it's interesting that there's no hint to that being. I think it'd be cool to do it, I think. Because Warhammer is so story-led. And, this game is story-led, like all the Games Workshop stuff. Like, it has shitloads of lore all around the war bands that you're playing and where you are and what you're fighting over. And, but that's, may as well not exist in the game as it is now.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. What do you play, Martin?
What's the other thing you've been playing? You said you've been playing 2 things.
Well, I'll be quick on this one as well, actually, because
you don't have to be.
Well, yeah,
you can take a luxurious.
Sure it's funny. I don't think I ever have that much to say about it. It's Generation Zero, which is a game that came out a year ago. It's a open world cooperative shooter in which set in the 80s Sweden.
Right, it's the thing that rips off Steinman Sollenhag's art.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Avalanche, right?
That's right. Avalanche it was their kind of first sort of new IP self-published game, made almost low budget by a small team within the studio. I wrote about it and it came out today, talking about the fact that it launched really badly. Like, the reviews were crap, and it, was fairly badly reviewed by all Steam users, and I was interested in it because I looked at it again and now its recent reviews are very positive.
Oh.
And so they've turned the game around. It's not played by that many people still, but I was always interested in the game because it's a weird one because it's taken the the Hunter Call of the Wilds engine, which is stunning. Like, this is Avalanche. They're good at graphics. So it's Sweden, a beautiful Sweden with amazing weather effects, forests and small towns and kind of coastlines and, mist and sunlight dappling through forests and all that kind of stuff. Made by a small team. And you're meant to be a little teenager. I've got a nerd character. wearing a sort of like pair of glasses and stuff. And
Whoa, what a nerd wearing glasses.
oh, hang on, we're both wearing. So the story is that you and your friends have been out on a little kind of on an island, on a little kind of camping trip, and you've returned home on your boat to discover that your family and everybody is gone from your town because dang robos have turned up, military robos have turned up, and they've laid waste to everything. And the story, the game is essentially a journey, and you travel across a very, very big area of land, from safe house to safe house. Safe house is essentially a place where you will respawn. So, if you go out on an excursion and get killed by robots, which is quite easy to do, you'll spawn back at your safe house and you've got to redo that journey. And you are being driven along by carrying out quests, which essentially, you find a thing saying, oh, we've gone to the evacuation point. We'll meet there. And like, go to the evacuation point at the sports center in the middle of town, so that you have to go there. And there are loads of robots there and you've got to survive so you can trigger the next bit of mission, get to the next safe house. And I don't know what it was like at launch, but right now it's a cool world. It's like, one of the, you're in suburban countryside Sweden, and that is a interesting place to be, because you're rifling through houses which have been recently kind of departed, and they look like kind of IKEA sets, and they're all the same. They're very, very similar to each other. There are not that many house models, so you'll see the same ones over and over, and you'll get used to their layouts, which is kind of handy when you're trying to loot them, because they're filled with radios. Some rooms can have 3 or 4 radios in them, and that's because radios are a tool that you can use to distract the robots. So you throw a radio, and the robots will come investigate it, because the game wants you to not always take the robots on, because the robots are quite hard to deal with. And my technique for fighting is essentially to find a house and to take pot shots of the robots from a doorway, so they don't shoot you, because if you're on the open against them, they are quite fast. And the gun mechanic is fairly sort of realistic-y. So if you move, your reticle is really wide, and you need to get pretty accurate shots on the robots to have a stand, to not just waste huge numbers of bullets against their armor. Most of them have a weak point on them, which if you shoot it twice, with a fairly weak gun, they will explode. And the explosions are really good. They're really and the ping and the pongs, like the feel, the weapon.
You enjoy the ping and the pongs?
I love the pings and the pongs of the robots. It feels that stuff is really good, but because you're so inaccurate, and because they will surround you and they're fast moving, I tend to do one thing, which is to run inside a house and then spend ages pot-shotting them, which is fun for them now. I've moved my order into a town, explored the town, and now there are kind of tanks kind of smoking in these roads, and now I've made my way up into a bunker, up on a hill, like a nuclear bunker, and I can't get in at the moment. So I've been told to go somewhere else. And on the way, I found a crashed, aeroplane with like a trail of fire across this field of kind of recently, harvested wheat. Like, it's really atmospheric, and there's always something new to find. But one of the criticisms of the game on launch was that there was nothing, the world was really samey. There was nothing to find in it. Huh. And that's certainly true in the houses. Like, you're finding the same loot in the same kinds of houses. But when you go out on a journey, I keep finding interesting, cool stuff just to look at.
Cool.
And I found it quite compulsive in a way that I don't tend to find those kind of survival flavored sort of shooter games.
Is there a survival mechanism? Do you need to get food? Thank God for that.
No, you can run along, and there's XP and stuff you're earning that you're kind of buying perks with and whatnot.
So tell me more about these robots and their pings and pongs. Are there lots of different kinds of robots?
There are lots of different kinds of robots. So there's the common one you find at towards the start is this sort of dog-sized it's like the Boston Dynamics one. It's a bit like that, and they'll bound around. They've got like a machine gun on them, which takes sort of like pulses of shots at you, and they will try to surround you. Then there's
Is it one hit you're dead sort of thing? What is it?
It's not far off. Not far off. I would say you can probably survive a salvo of about 3 or 4. I've actually been caught out most by so on those there's a weak point just above, just on their backs. So it feels a lot like
Horizon?
Zero Horizon, Zero Dawn.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
That. It feels a lot
Heroes
like
and
that.
eyes and doors.
So like you shoot and like bits fall off them, which is really nice as well. Like really nice feedback. And like when you get the weak point, like it is very clear that you hit the weak point. When you hit that and they die, they explode. And if you are within not that far away, you'll get badly hurt.
Right.
But
do you just recover over time, or do you need to heal items?
No, you need health packs. And that's one of the sort of strange things about it. Like this thing with the radios, because it's so anxious for you to have the stuff that you need, at least in this early part of the game. I'm probably 4 or 5 hours played so far. It throws health packs everywhere. So you go inside a house and like, there are health packs fucking everywhere.
This is just true of Sweden.
Everywhere,
It's a very safety conscious place, and they love radio.
And flares and fireworks. That's all they have.
Actually, fireworks, I think there may be rules regarding the use of fireworks in Sweden. I think they're not determined to be safe for general usage.
Maybe it was okay in the 80s.
Yeah, a lawless time.
But it does feel a bit weird that like you spend a lot of time picking up health packs, but then you also use a shitload of health packs. So you're kind of going, oh, fucking hell, I got to pick up all the health packs.
I will say this sounds really good.
Yeah, you got like there's a nice sort of binoculars. It rewards careful play, like looking, you see, the game concentrates the robots around attractions. That jet that crashed on the, in the field, there are robots around it. So, I had a look at them and had a fight with those ones. There are wandering ones as well. There are also, there's also mechanical rivals where sometimes when you're killed by a robot or you kill a certain number of robots in an area, a robot is sort of given a specific designator and you know about it, and it's sort of slightly more powerful, and it's sort of, becomes this sort of nemesis kind of style sort of robot, which, it's all right. There are bikes.
Ooh.
The bikes are horrible to use.
Oh.
But it's nice. It's a lot nicer than I thought it was going to be. And
are you playing it co-op or?
No, I've been playing on my own. I'd like to play it. Co-op.
Yeah, I should jump in that.
It's like, I think it'd be a nice tense, like when you're on your own, like you don't want to die, but also, you don't have anyone relying on you. So when you do die, you go, oh, okay. I think when you're together, I think that it's sort of
more pressure,
tension, and the ability to do more interesting things and cower in a house sort of maybe increase.
I wonder if anyone will re-review it.
I wonder. I doubt it.
No.
Its time is gone, I think. I don't know whether they can turn it around. It's quite an interesting kind of case study for, a largish studio known for working with publishers tries to go alone. And it didn't, I think that it probably wasn't, I think they've learned a shitload. And I think that the game is probably worthy of the studio now, more or less. I don't know how it pans out over, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. I don't know whether it's going to sustain, drip feeding interesting new stuff. I've certainly come across a big robot. I've seen flying robots. There's a big walkery robot, which took loads of shots. But I'm so weak, I'm so sort of feeble, my nerd character and me in real life, that the idea of a really heavily armored robot, especially one at night standing in a forest when I'm carrying a house, so I can't really see it. It wasn't a nice thing to be up against. It wasn't really tension filled. It was just kind of like, oh, for fuck's sakes, using up all of my ammo. But anyway, yeah, Generation Zero. If it goes on sale, take a look.
I think I might look at it. I think I might try and play it with you this weekend if you're
Yeah, we can
up
ask
for
you
it.
maybe when you've been to these places. It's all in Swedish as well. Like the voiceover is all in Swedish, which is good.
A nice little trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
I mean, you were hunted through by robots.
Destroyed many robots and listened to an awful lot of radio. I've been listening to, not radio. That's a terrible segue. There's not a radio in the game that I've played.
This is a podcast. Do you know what else happens on a podcast? People talk about different games. Marsh?
Thanks.
Did you play a game?
I did play a game, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've been playing The Suicide of Rachael Foster, which is, yeah, it's not a really upbeat title, is it? I mean, it's a walking sim with high production values. I remember, in fact, when I mentioned you've been playing this, you asked why there'd been a spate of reviews of this, because why particularly this game has been seized upon when there's quite a lot of other walking simulators out there, and why this one has been picked up by a lot of the major outlets when none of them really seem to like it that much.
Yeah, and the studio is not. They've done so I looked at. They've done a VR pinball game or something like that. Or something.
I mean, Daedalic published it. Who also published the game that we were talking about a week ago, A Year Without Rain, I think it was called, that flopped and disappeared without trace. So, I mean, but I mean, Daedalic are a reasonably large studio, so maybe they just have the reach, the PR reach to put it in people's hands. I don't know why it's been picked up to the extent it has, really. Maybe it's just that.
What made you play it? Specifically, why did you choose it?
Well, I don't know that I'm a good measure of what the audience in general is for this game, because I particularly wanted to play something that was like the antithesis of Hunt, because I've been playing Hunt pretty much continuously all day when I should have been doing other things. So the games that I've sort of gravitated towards in my Hunt downtime are things which are narrative-y and maybe short form and perhaps less fucking intense and terrifying. But I don't think that's probably the experience of most of the people who gravitate towards this game. I think maybe it's just, I mean, so they've gone out of their way to signal what kind of game it is by calling it The Suicide of Rachael Foster, which
is
immediately
pretty ballsy, I'd say.
Which sounds exactly like The Vanishing of Ethan Carter in structure.
Yeah, or, What Remains of Edith Finch is the other side of that same name title.
Yeah, and in fact, it probably shares more with that game than it does with Vanishing of Ethan Carter, because it's about exploring a single location. But I wonder if it's just there's just been a period of time when there weren't that many other walking simulators of a certain sort of level of budget. And this has just ticked those boxes. It's got proper voice acting, and, it looks like people have spent some money on it.
Right. But it's in the category of things that it's interesting that that title is already puts it in a bracket, but the bracket it puts it in is the kinds of games that have gotten awards over the last couple of years, right?
True,
If it is strong, then it immediately sort of races above maybe its budget or its scope to kind of be one of those things in contention, right? Like
it isn't strong, Chris. It's bad.
Oh,
unfortunately. Sorry to.
That's okay. Yeah. No, I mean,
yeah, it's I played it through to completion, but really only for the sake of this podcast, unfortunately. And it's a shame. Okay, so the first thing I have to mention, it has the most egregious, excessive head bob of any game I've played, I think. It is like you are drunk on a ship that is tossing in a stormy sea. It is mad how much your head moves when you're simply moving forward. It's like
Marsh is miming a kind of
walrus or something,
like a cat regurgitating something.
Yeah, that sort of pelican.
Or then even when you move sideways, you kind of drop like a whole foot in the air and then rise back up again. It's weird. I don't know why they've done it. There's no way to turn it off. It made me feel physically ill.
Did it suggest a body that was gross and malformed?
Well, this is because I was wondering if there was like a law reason for this. I mean, you know quite a lot about your character's childhood, and nothing seems to be excessively weird about her body then, because she plays I can't remember what sport it is, hockey, I think, or something. And then
hockey industry injuries. Yeah.
Well, maybe she got just nobbled at some point and now has really bandy legs as a result. I don't know, but it's
and a wobbly neck.
But it's really. I mean, that alone.
Was it sick making?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it's really serious how over the top it is. And also you're way too tall for the car you get out of. Anyway.
Well, all of this can be explained if your lower half is a spring like Zebedee from the Magic Roundabout. You can scrunch up to fit in a car.
Yeah. And maybe you're really good at hockey because nobody can take your feet out from underneath you.
But there you go. That is one art change solved.
Anyway, actually, I mean, one of the reasons I did play it is because, it's I like mystery games, and this actually has quite, a challenging synopsis in that it goes for subject matter which is pretty fucking harsh sounding, but also there is just at its center quite an intriguing scandal, basically an intriguing mystery, and that is that when you were 16 your father is revealed to be having an affair with one of your peers, a student of his no less, and this causes the dissolution of your parents' marriage, and you leave and never to see your father again during his lifetime. And the eponymous Rachael Foster, who is the 16-year-old who your father is interested in, kills herself along with her unborn child. So, like, I mean, right out of the gate, this is some heavy fucking stuff, and it's grim. And, you know, there is a moment in the game where you think it's going to engage with this stuff in a mature way, but instead it just uses the gravity of the situation to slingshot itself straight into the fucking sun. It is. But we'll get to that. So anyway, the game is, so all this stuff has happened in the past. That's in the 1980s, I think. And then the game is set a decade later, which is the 1990s.
That's how,
that's how time works. And I guess it's set in the 1990s partly to excuse the use of a telephone to talk to a person continuously throughout the game, but not a really good telephone, but one of those kind of giant brick telephones, like the first telephones. So you can excuse the fact that nobody has texting and you can't get in contact with loads of other people.
It also largely excuses why you may walk like you're in the video for Madness is One Step Beyond.
That's what was playing throughout the, and anyway, so your parents are both dead. They ran a hotel together. Your mother owned it. Your father carried on running it after your mother and yourself disappear. But it's actually your inheritance. And so you return to this, I think it's called
the old inheritance two-step.
Yeah, it's the Timberline Lodge, which obviously brings back ideas of the Shining.
Is it sort of Pacific Northwesty?
It's in Montana in the mountains. So it's sort of like a pine ski lodge.
Piney.
But I'm just thinking of the now tropes of this subgenre, right? Where you're always returning to somewhere in the Pacific Northwest.
I mean, it could be.
Montana's not far.
It's not far. It's not miles off. What I'm saying is,
it's more snowy than wet. Is the main difference, I guess.
Right. What I'm saying is you're either in like Washington or Oregon or a space station named after somewhere in Washington. Like,
But so this is the thing that the game really has going for it, is the Timberline Lodge Hotel itself. And it's, it's decaying. Your father obviously wasn't able to carry on running it, and part of it's fallen into disrepair. But it's still this really kind of incredibly credible space. That's not a phrase I should have used. It's a very credible space.
Incredibly credible.
Incredibly incredible. Incredibly credible.
Is it incredible or is it credible?
It's credible, but also to the point where actually
it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievably credible.
It's maybe too believable to be a game space in some ways, because it's quite tangled. It feels like it's probably based on real footprint of an actual hotel, because it doesn't necessarily feel that good to move around all the time.
Like, is everything too small feeling, or it looks right but it's nasty, small to move around in?
It's entangled in a way which the gameplay does not make advantage of in an interesting way. It's just like, I've gone the wrong way to the laundry room, right. And that's something that could have been interesting in the game. Like, they could have exploited the fact that this is a complex space, but actually the game structure doesn't permit that in at all, which is something I'll talk about later. But so you're there. It's really intriguing, explorable space, and you're shut in there for a period of time because there's a big snowstorm and you can't get out. And so you're forced to confront the ghosts of your past. Literal ghosts? Or metaphorical ghosts?
Oh,
it's going to be ghosts, isn't it?
Has it got spirits?
He's got the twinkly eyes of a man who's seen a bad creative decision.
But no, I'm down with all of that, actually. I think that, the premise, I'm happy for it to tackle this challenging subject matter as a matter of,
That's true. I was being reductive. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And the space is exciting, I think. The artists have done a really good job in creating a hotel. Let's not take it away from them. It's really
Has
good.
he got a big bear?
Is it an incredible job?
It's pretty incredible. Yeah. Pretty incredible.
Does it have a big stuffed bear?
I think maybe there is a bear. There's definitely a moose head.
Good.
But there's the weird thing so they kind of throw this hotel away a little bit because there's no point exploring it. Like the space is saying, run around me like an excited child in a big hotel, like you would. But you're kind of led through the nosebite. There's no point going anywhere until you're literally told to go there. Because you can't interact with the things. Although there's lots of things in the environment that you can interact with completely pointlessly. Like, this is the Gone Home thing where you can pick up loads and loads of items and you're like, well, that's a really nice cigarette, case, I guess. Put it back down again. And there doesn't seem to be...
It doesn't comment on it. Oh, this is the cigarette case that my mother liked.
Well, some things are meaningful and a lot of things aren't. So it's not really well flagged up. And it feels a bit like time wasting. And you are kind of just led through it. So the game's structured in a series of days, basically, and you have more or less decide upon one objective per day. And
you decide. Oh, you said that.
No, you don't. Your character does in conversation down the phone with a FEMA agent whose job it is to safeguard your stay at this hotel during this historic storm.
Oh, so we've got a bit of fire watching here.
So you do, yeah. He was very fire watching.
Wyoming. It's not that far.
It's fully voiced,
quite far.
like I said, and the actors are trying their very, very best with what is a really clumsy script. But unlike Firewatch, I would say that their conversation, which you listen to near constantly, is almost immediately and enduringly irritating. And it's really curious.
Is it the Firewatch model, or is it?
Well, somebody rings you up, or you ring them up, and
yeah,
it's
but sure, is there a relationship? The Firewatch model of kind of a relationship sort of grows through the calls.
That's the idea,
right?
But it's really curious in the sheer number of ways in which it is irritating. And I feel a bit bad about this because, games are like, they're complex things to put together and they're composite. And, one of the main challenges of this medium, which is essentially like a collage of different media, is that one part doesn't always fit with all the others. And that's just a common complaint. I think gamers are usually pretty good at compartmentalizing these things and discarding the parts that don't quite work or excusing them and enjoying the bits that do work together. But this is a walking simulator, so you really only have two verbs, walk and talk.
Bob and talk.
And it's weird that these two things don't fit together. Like, even just walking to one place, as is your objective, will not take the same amount of time as the conversation you're having.
Oh no, man, because that was the Firewatch thing. It's like, you've got to walk a distance and you're going to have a conversation which lasts that length, or it's meaningful for the length that it lasts within that journey.
Yeah, but instead you're waiting for this really kind of ambulatory, inefficient conversation to end.
So you're standing around before the door.
Yeah, you're literally, the thing you're going to click on next, and you're waiting to click on it. You're waiting to click on it. And eventually this conversation ends. You click on it. Back comes the phone, and it sounds like you've just woken up the other character, even though you're speaking to them like a second ago. And okay, so, maybe production-wise, those two conversations are meant to happen at a different cadence, and it got truncated in some way. But you can find ways of excusing it as a production, but because it's the sole focus of the game, it becomes really apparent and much more grating, I think, than if it was in another game which had a lot more moving elements. On top of this, the actual content of the dialogue isn't so good. There are, in fact, I've got a list of 3 ways in which it doesn't quite work for me. And
now we turn to the
so crime number 1. It doesn't match what you, the player, feels or logically knows at any point what your character is saying. So, in one of the ways this expresses itself is your character is absolute dickhead at the beginning of the game. Just a complete arsehole. She's really rude and unpleasant to this FEMA agent. And she wants to leave the hotel as soon as possible. And you're like, no, I'm the player. I've just got here. I quite like to know what's going on. I don't know why I've been so rude. And fine, it's a dramatic choice to have a character who's really kind of offensive. But it's a kind of bold move to put that aggressive voice inside the head of the player from the get-go, right? For no real obvious reason.
Yeah.
And she's also guilty of just, at points, she doesn't ask the questions, which is so fucking pertinent at that point. Like, a cool end, you'd be like, what? You didn't fucking ask about this? And then at other times, she'll make these kind of huge leaps, which you aren't privy to. So there's at one point, during her sleeping hours, it seems, she goes from wanting to leave the hotel at the nearest opportunity, and you wake up and you're looking at a fucking detective-style murder board with red string on it, and she's like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this mystery. And you're like, what happened? When did that decision get made? It's just...
And this is a linear game, right?
Yes.
There's no way you to have done this out of, like, in a different order.
You can't do anything out of sync. No, it's really frustrating.
So and sometimes they know exactly what you know at any point during the story.
Supposedly, yes. Although there's periods that, so it doesn't, you don't sort of like have an entire day and then get into bed. Just you'll complete whatever amount of the story it judges to be sufficient for that day, and suddenly it'll go black screen day 2, and you don't know what's exactly happened between that period of time. But you're in a different place, which is annoying because you might have decided, oh, I'd quite like to go to that room and have a look at that picture or something like that, but you can't because you've been whisked away through a loading screen. To the sleep
claims
land.
you.
Yeah. Also, it's not a great piece of writing. So this is point number 2. It's not a great piece of writing. I suspect that the writer's language isn't native English. The writer's native language isn't English, I should say. That means like a lot of the idiom and jokes and turns of phrase just don't quite work, and it sounds strange. And sort of worse than that is it's just a really inefficient piece of writing. Like, I mean, not just because the writing doesn't match the time that you have to do objectives, but because you'll phone up this FEMA guy and ask him a question, and he'll go like, huh? And then your character will just repeat the question, and you're like, I don't have fucking time for this, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's meant to kind of give a sense of verite to the dialogue, but there's no verite to the dialogue. That's what that I was going to say, that ship has flown.
Unbelievable.
But it just, I mean, there's so much of the game that you feel impatient with that having this kind of flab to it is just incredibly frustrating. And I've shouted, shut the fuck up multiple times just because I want to be able to click on a fucking picture or something. Point number 3, I assure you there's not that much left to this, diatribe. So just to recap point 1. So there's a mismatch between player intention and the characters, and the dialogue word by word isn't that fun to listen to. And the final point is that the thematic conclusions that it arrives at are gormless at best and deeply fetid at worst. And so
I love that's a sliding scale, like gormless to fetid. You don't see that at the end of an IGN review, do you? That's what real game reviews like. None of these 4 buttholes things. Oh, he said we were gormless. That's not so bad. It could have been fetid. Anyway, sorry.
I think more people should review by my scale.
Yeah.
Anyway, by gormless, I mean that at one point the FEMA agent says, you know, we have to work out what this character from the past was trying to tell us, and the conversation ends, and immediately a chalkboard rotates to reveal the word murderer written across it.
Not even backwards, because I'm getting big Shining vibes from the whole.
Yeah, actually, it doesn't lean that heavily into the Shining as much as it could. But another example. Your father, despite being a hotel owner, is also really cursorily characterized as being this savant physicist. And this has almost no bearing at all on anything in the plot, except one point where a character repeatedly insists on using the phrase horizon of events in completely inappropriate circumstances. I guess because it sounds sciencey.
It's like the Event Horizon or the film Event Horizon. Sam Neill.
He was an ardent cinema goer.
No, he's just talking about events. He doesn't need the word horizon in there, but he puts it in because it sounds like, it's a bit like, it's a bit
Horizon
like
Zero Dawn.
And I'm like, that's not how metaphors work. And in fact, this is even more accentuated by the key art for the game, which you might have seen on the Steam store, which is a pink dental retainer that looks a bit like a butterfly, and they make a great point of trying to make it look more like a butterfly throughout the game. But that's not a metaphor. It's just a thing that looks like another thing. It doesn't, it's nothing,
is it like
there's nothing there.
Is it like the butterfly effect, I guess?
No.
Or like something coming out of a chrysalis?
No, it's not.
Or like something about how, I guess, dental retainers like have a kind of, puberty kind of connotation. So people transform into their adult forms through that period in their lives, shedding their larval dental retainer form and turning into a
Has he
dental...
nailed it?
You've done a lot more work than the game has. But also, no, because that character dies. That character kills herself at the age of 16.
Ah, yeah, but it's truncated. What was the point of creating all those
Yeah,
teeth?
the dental
'Cause she
retainer
did
hadn't
die.
finished turning into a butterfly, Marsh.
It's just a fucking mouth guard. There's nothing, you can't make it into a butterfly.
Does it
no
look
matter how
nice?
you try. Huh?
Does it look nice?
You've seen mouth guards before, they're horrible. I don't know what it's meant to evoke. Like, a mouth guard's a stinking things that smell of people's saliva.
I think it's meant to be redolent of tragedy.
It's not elegiac.
I think you're supposed to think about how this is beautiful and also made of wire and a bit industrial and scary at the same time.
Yeah, I suspect there may be
it's an intrusion into the body.
But it's also beautiful in a way. But it isn't.
Yeah, it's not.
But by fetid...
Yeah.
Let me get on to the
Let's
fetid.
go. We haven't got to fetid
I'm just saying,
yet.
I think there's some Donnie Darko adjacent symbolic material you could hoist from this if you really wanted to.
You'd have to work really hard, is what I'm saying.
You're putting it back to the winch. Right? I've been playing a lot of Besiege.
So the suicide material is dealt with extraordinarily badly, and there's stuff which is in it which I won't spoil because it's kind of extremely climactic plot stuff, but none of it makes any sense from a narrative perspective, really, and it feels a bit cheaply dramatic and narratively a complete cop-out. But worse than that is the way that the game deals with the handling of your father banging a 16-year-old, which, who is, as I said, his student and also a family friend. But at no
he's a
point...
teacher, physicist, hotel owner.
Is he coaching her in hotels or coaching her in physics?
Coaching her in something, math, I think. I can't remember. She also, there's an allusion to having a speech impediment at some point, and maybe he helps with her linguistics, because apparently that's the thing physicists can do.
Hoteliers are very good at that.
But, so the exploitative dimension of that relationship is not at all explored. It's not even referred to. Your character is angry with your father at the beginning, but as far as I can tell, the crime he has committed is infidelity to your mother. There's no point in which it suggests that this is maybe an inappropriate relationship for a very old man to have with a very young girl for other reasons. And
Jesus.
I'm open-minded, and if it was the point of the game to somehow exonerate this seemingly unusual relationship by saying there was a real, true, and deep and enduring love there underneath, despite this alarming age difference, then that might be one thing. But the game doesn't do that. It just presents platitudes like, "No, it was real love." And you're like, really? But that's not really good enough, Yeah. And I think just to have that material in it and then not to understand
and not to address the I don't know what the age of consent was in the 80s was it Montana? In Montana, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the age of consent is in the country where this was written, if it is indeed not.
Italy, I think.
Right. But that's a big old factoid that you have to address in the story of the thing, correct?
Yeah, I think so. It doesn't really.
Not that the legal age of consent is the only consideration there, but it would be a factor weighing on the lives of the characters one way or another.
Yeah, it's right? if you're going to bring it up, it's such a live wire of a touch paper.
Yeah. And then there's a few other things in the game which are more spoilery, which feel just like you say, like live wires that,
are they there to titillate, or is it sort of...
No, I don't think it's, so I will give the game credit for not being salacious about this stuff, which is something it could have done. But it just doesn't have the mind to engage with it. which is weird and bad, but not as bad as the head bobbing, which is the worst thing about it. So there you go. That's my review.
Oof.
Oh, I've got muddy shoes. Is that what it was?
No.
What was it? I've fallen in the mud.
I'm stuck in the muck. Oh no. Oh no, I'm stuck in the muck. I'm stuck in the muck. Oh no.
It's sort of like a high-pitched Alan Bennett.
Yeah, but what was it? What was the genesis?
I really don't know what the inciting incident for this was.
This is like one of those phrases that you can't escape, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've given
echoing
me
in my
one
head
of
now.
those. Yeah.
Like tinnitus.
Yeah. I hate that because it's like, that's some fucking like comment in your code now, and it's going to be the last thing you ever hear.
You get a fever and like it's just echoing.
Well, you know what's going to happen. I'm going to die in a landslide, and it's going to say on my gravestone, he was stuck in the muck.
You stuck palate cleansing citrus into my brain.
Yeah. Do you get it every time you peel an orange now?
Yep.
What was?
Just a
Palate
phrase.
cleansing citrus. Yeah.
Palate cleansing citrus.
Yeah.
I just like.
I have, let's shed some light on the situation when I just had the notion to switch a light on.
I think I might have given you that one as well.
Oh God. You might have done.
I think it's the thing I've mindlessly intoning for years.
Human wound in the psychosphere, Marsh Davies.
Yeah.
Both fetid and gormless.
That's me. I'm stuck in the muck.
Yeah. Cursed language obelisk.
Oh wow. Should we do some questions?
Yeah,
Mild creepypasta.
I think we're beyond the point where that segue is going to make sense, aren't we? So, should we just do questions now without a segue?
I could say it if you like.
No, I think we might as well go with what we've got.
All right.
Plunge on. TJ Howes writes, Hello. A few years ago, I was couch-ridden for a month following a botched vasectomy.
Oh.
I played a lot of Slay the Spire with a gamepad to distract myself from the scrot agony. Slay the Spire became my comfort game for when I'm feeling poorly. Do you have a comfort game you play when you're sick? Something not too demanding, but engaging enough to distract you from the ails of your flesh prison. Cheers, TJ House.
Slay the Spire, though.
It's too brainy. Like if
No, that's not the reason I was. Anyway,
God, Jesus Christ.
the comfort games.
I was feeling a little bit poor the other day, and I sparked up an
Big
old
old
campaign on Total Warhammer 2, which I'd already beaten and hadn't kind of, because you can continue playing, and I didn't have any of the time pressure stuff, so I could just conquer gently at my own rate. And it's a game where you can go into it gently, and then things can kind of
I
start
had that urge.
building
I
up.
came off a very, very sort of stressful work fortnight and really wanted to like sink into a grand strategy for an afternoon. I didn't. I just played Hunt, which is not a recuperative game. It's just a game I like a lot, so I don't want to use this as an excuse to talk about it. I'll probably use a later question for that. But yeah, I did find recently that Mordhau with Friend was genuinely kind of healing in some ways. Like, I don't say that tremendously lightly. I think it's because it's a game where I don't give a tiny, smallest, weeniest little shit about its progression, really. And I can just do fun loadouts and throw spears at a friend and have spears thrown at me, and I genuinely enjoy it. And there's something about, it's just pure play and there's no progression. There's nothing to win or lose, really. Well, there is. You can have your head chopped off the Bardiche by a racist. But, you know, other than that measure of loss, which is something we've all gotten used to in the last couple of years, there's nothing that hurts. And so I've actually found it genuinely therapeutic. It's like hanging out on a server when you're 16 playing AVP, and that's what you do all day, because that's what there is. So yeah, that's been genuinely good. I think that's partly because I'm not challenging myself. I'm not competing against myself or anyone else. I'm just enjoying physics and men yelling. It's nice.
I like open world games where I just go back and explore a little bit of the map that I haven't bothered to go to before. And it's usually nothing there. It's just like I haven't gone up to the actual boundary of the world yet. But I like doing that. I like getting
Just for cowboy game pottering.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been going around the entire boundary of the explorable space in Red Dead Redemption just to push back the fog as far as I can around the map. I found that very satisfying.
Nice.
Fighting off cougars. Gently.
No, I mean, there aren't really that many animals that attack you in Red Dead 2, which is quite nice. That was a problem. I think that's been a problem in, it's certainly a problem in Far Cry games. I mean, you're just being attacked almost continuously. But,
I've been promising myself a trip back to Jedi Fallen Order, which I finished, just to mop up some of its side stories, because that's a nice thing.
Yeah,
I think it's
a nice thing to return to.
Yeah, as a treat. Like it's telling to me that I haven't, because that's almost like breaking the glass on actually chilling out and playing a video game. You know what I mean? Like, which hasn't actually happened yet. But nonetheless.
I actually, I think about it, because, I had an unfortunate flight the other day where I went to a country and then I had to come back from the country because the country didn't let me in. So, I came back feeling pretty tired. And I put on, Assassin's Creed Greece.
Odyssey.
Are
you talking about Mythic Quest?
Well, initially I found it quite relaxing but it gets very intense very quickly. Like, because it will just, you get into a fight.
Well, it must be a whole life, right?
Scales up. But then, then I started feeling stressed because all the quests started, I should be doing some quests, and then which quest, and look at the cultists. How do I find that? Where do I start with all the cultists? Where do and then I go to the place where one of the cultists is meant to be found, and then I kind of, I just found it so stressful I had to switch it off.
Because it's just things were higher level
too
than you
many
expected?
Things. No, it wasn't even that. Everything was within my reach. It was just so much of it buzzing around, kind of wanting attention.
It's like a holiday with a real fast itinerary.
It was, it was like that, or like, sort of like a big bunch of lads. We're going to go to the bar. We're going to go to the bar.
Like a stag weekend, overplanned stag weekend. Yeah, it was like
an overplanned stag weekend.
Oh dear.
Why are all games like this?
Cowboy game is a nice quiet one though, actually.
It is quiet, drip feeds all this stuff to you. And because encounters with characters are based on the time at which they appear during the day, there's not a map which is just covered in icons either, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
David writes, "Hi all. Hearing Marsh talk about the creature in the well in episode 310 reminded me of two things. That the game existed, adding yet another entry to my list of games that I want to play but never will, and that the concept really reminds me of Firestalker. It also puts the player into the role of a moving pinball paddle, though it sounds like the creature in the well is much more forgiving. I never played it when I was a kid, but it has remained firmly lodged in my mental encyclopedia of SNES games from poring over issues of Nintendo Power. So many game mechanics are repeated over and over, I was surprised to hear about a game using a relatively unused idea. What game mechanics have been lying fallow that you'd like to see reused? Take care, David."
The game I'm playing with myself right now is Don't Say Skiing. But my brain is refusing to think about anything other than tribes.
So is not saying skiing the mechanic that's lying fallow that you'd like to bring back?
Yeah, in a sort of meta podcast sense, yeah. Fuck, skiing. Well,
tribes.
No. Why are you holding yourself back from the skiing?
Because I wang on about tribes all the fucking time, Alex. It's because, it's because, and I don't know, I've been on a journey with this where I now understand that adding like finesse, any kind of really finessey movement mechanic to your competitive team shooter is a rapid way to the bin. Like it's a way to dumpster yourself entirely and the fortunes of everybody you work with. But I admire it every time someone tries. Clifford, it's one for you, buddy. And like at the same time, I think it's because I think maybe to answer the question the other way around, the reason people don't do this is games trade so heavily on immediate interactability with like a set of mechanics that are familiar to everyone. And as soon as any part of that feels super weird, it's like maybe the secret to unlocking the potential of the game you were playing, Marsh, is that you are a big old spring man or whatever. And like you've got to, propel yourself through this mystery one way or another and dealing with your own situation.
You are in a chalet, so skiing would be an actual choice, really.
I'm not saying that you add skiing for tribes to every walking simulator, but am I? That's the question. I don't know. I think traversal is often the way that I feel like this manifests for me. Like I think if you can make navigating the game world feel completely different, then you sort of opened up this whole possibility space. But there's so few examples of people doing that in a way that feels as kind of game changing as it needs to, and that doesn't alienate like 90% of the people who play the game. I think Portal is one of the few examples of this, where like you can change how people traverse a first person 3D maze completely, but do so using the vocabulary that already existed, which is shoot. Like that's, you know, that's mega clever. It's the only example of that, which is why every subsequent attempt to match it with like, it's like that, but it's goo. Or it's like that, but it's making things big or small. Or it's like that, but it's, you know, whatever is so rare. Maybe you could argue that something like, Outer Wilds pulls this off, layering lots of different mechanics onto the same basic sort of physics simulation, but making them super consistent. Like, maybe I'm meandering towards an answer, which is great because I'm bailing you two out because I'm not helping at all.
Actually, I did think of one in that time. I don't know if it's really something that would work out of the context in which it worked, but there are quite a lot of SNES and NES games that did weird things that have never been tried again. Do you remember? So I had this on a bootleg cartridge from Singapore, and the game on that was known as Balloon Peck, but I believe it had a more sensible title. Was it just Balloon Hunt?
There's a NES game called Balloon Hunt. Yeah.
It's probably Balloon Hunt then is the actual title of it. And you, it's a competitive game, where you play, little men holding two balloons, and you can kind of
with pecky faces
flap into the air, and you just got to, fall onto the other, person's balloons to pop them, and they've got two balloons, so you pop them twice and they fall, and that's them done. And there are birds flying around trying to peck your balloons as well. And that hasn't been done since, strangely enough. But it's actually it's a very satisfying, in some ways its DNA goes into things like Smash Brothers and other games where you're you know, there's a fixed arena where you're trying to just essentially nobble another player. Joust,
It's like joust, and then the Flappy Bird is, you know, because you're pressing the button to keep your height and kind of modulate your height.
But there is something very satisfying about the combination of those things, being able to sort of fly and also the task of bumping another person on the head. And having that kind of
for aerial dominance.
Yeah, but also your aerial mobility is quite stodgy. So there's sort of like it's not a fluid dive bombing aerial combat thing. It's more like you're struggling up into the air under great labor, and then, timing yourself quite precisely, but seeding your success over quite a long period because it's quite flabby.
I could be wrong, but I think Satoru Iwata did it. So
really,
as in the former now late head of Nintendo.
I didn't know I had so much so that I owe him. But I do, clearly.
I did have one idea, but I don't know whether it would be realised very well now, because there's something in the old style simplicity that made it work for me. But there was a series of games made by Japanese, like this is on Super Nintendo, by a company called Agenda. Oh, brain struggling here. I think they're called Agenda, called Terranigma and a couple of others, Soul Blade, another one. And they are action games in the sense of like you're wandering around. One of them is a platformer action game. Another one is you're sort of walking around with the view from above and you're kind of hitting stuff and it's just fairly simple action games, but they are joined together with some really interesting, sort of somewhat RTS levels where the things that you've collected in the action levels, come into the interstitial levels. And there's one game which is quite RTS-y, which I'm not that keen on. It's a bit janky, not very interesting. But there's another one where you're basically building up a village, and every time you go back to the action bit and you do a thing, more stuff changes in the village, and buildings materialize, giving access to new things. So every time you go back to the village, you have more shit to explore, and it gives you a real sense of progression and interest. Finished level. Great, that was a challenge, and my reward is now I can get to a new area that it was being kind of hinted at. I'm not sure that games can do that so well now, because they have a kind of embarrassment of riches as it is to explore and look at, whereas in those days, the idea of simply getting a new dialogue scene would be kind of like, whoa, fucking hell, this is excellent. Oh, look, there's a new interior I can go into. But there's a simplicity back then where that kind of really shined. I'd like to see games experiment more with kind of withholding a bit, to give you a sense of like, oh, Animal Crossing always did it well. It was a game all about kind of holding stuff back, making stuff feel special, using time mostly. But these are games that are about holding stuff back because of assets. This is a thing. But I don't know. I think there's something there in a game to kind of to play around with, whether it would just feel boring because now games are so filled. Like the cowboy game. A square mile of that game is more than most is more to look at that you can possibly process. And it's nice to explore the other end.
That's true. Your house does upgrade in Red Dead Redemption 2 after a certain point, but it doesn't have the same impact as it would have done in Games of Yore, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
for those reasons.
Yeah, so you go back to towns, then you can see people building new buildings, can't you? But it's such a sort of whereas you should be going, oh, holy shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. I know what you mean. Like holding things back to that extent. I think
making you care.
Yeah, the root thing there is you're not revealing to the player everything that's in the box for them to enjoy, right?
Yeah.
Like the sense of the value of the game is sort of deepened by the notion that things can change. I do think there's something in the aspect of the game changes the moment players realize that they've seen every asset that there is going to be. And therefore you will see them remixed from now on, but you may be still happy to keep playing, but there are no more zones to discover. There's no more big surprises. I think about that kind of escalation a lot and why it's important.
Yeah.
I think there's something very important about the feeling of being treated to something that's finished. And I think it's actually something that's actually tremendously lost by the early access era is you really shouldn't see the new assets when they arrive. You should be treated to the, a scope of game that expands just a little bit further than you're expecting it to. That's the most rewarding feeling. It doesn't have to be twice what you're expecting, but like that extra little bit, you're like, oh, there's an epilogue bit or some cool thing for me to discover. That's very valuable, I think.
Yeah. I mean, not to toot on the low-hanging fruit, but I'm doing it anyway. Ooh. I mean, that series, that is very much about rewarding you with a new thing, Here's a new area. Oh, look at that. Oh, there's a new detail in an area which is actually quite detailless. You're walking through kind of quite empty-looking rooms quite a lot in the Souls series. And when you find a new room with a detail that you hadn't seen before, that is a game of that.
And your hub also does get more characters.
Does, yeah. Well, so, actually, it does it well. And it's holding you back through kind of making you work for it.
And it does feel so important when a new character arrives at, or in Bloodborne even, when a new character arrives at which church is it? I can't remember. Eden Chapel. Iron. What have you pronounced it? Weeden. But then you're like, oh, what does this mean?
Why was this? What was this triggered by? Yeah,
I don't think it's a coincidence that it's made by a Japanese studio, and and so much about that game looks back at sort of classic, sort of particularly 16-bit games, Metroid games and whatever.
Yeah, true.
You could just talk about the game forever, couldn't you?
It's as if we could.
I'm not going to. Jamie writes, hello chests and cheekbones. I don't know what it's going for really. Do you have chests of cheekbones? Oh, is it a chest?
I think it's like two appealing things about...
So what it is, it's a set of cheekbones that look like a chest and it means something.
After decades of being paralysed by character creation screens and inevitably going with default McBlandy features, I recently found myself unconsciously creating the same woman whenever the option arises. She's tall, blonde, robustly built, in her early 40s, attractive, but in an entirely workplace appropriate and modest manner. You can easily imagine her as the CEO of a FTSE 100 company, or giving a TED talk on applied robotics. I had made her several times in several games before I realised what I was doing. But apparently this woman lives inside me, and I don't know why. What character do you find yourself making, and what would Freud make of your choices? All the best, Jamie, aka Matron Boy from Discord, and a 34-year-old fat man.
Oh boy. I think I spent a long time making myself and varying versions of myself, and what Freud would say to that is that I would like to live in the computer game rather than anywhere else, and ideally, if that could be expedited, that would be, I don't think Freud would say that bit, but I would. And then...
Yeah, it's more Jungian kind of thing.
Yeah, lately, so actually, very much predating Assassin's Creed Greece, but I would describe the character I've made in every RPG since as basically Cassandra from Assassin's Creed Greece, which made that game very enjoyable because it was like there's someone who fully voiced the character that I had been making.
But there aren't many games that can possibly give you the tools to have that toned upper arms.
I know, but if you can, it's good.
Yeah.
I tend to make female tanks, basically, because I think it's an underrepresented archetype in most RPGs. Like in the kinds of game where you get these kinds of choices, it's rare that the frontline fighter is a woman in massive armor. So that tends to be what I make, kind of like that big tower shield. Like the Crusader from Diablo would be a good archetype for that.
She's cool.
Yeah.
I like playing her in Heroes of the Storm. Yeah, I think recently I've got into making characters based on the barks that they have, because you can often choose like the sounds as well. And I'll go through them and I'll be like, I'm going to have to listen to their screaming death noises quite a lot probably. So I'll choose one which is less offensive and then build a character around that. I'm like, I don't think I'll go for that one.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in the mud.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the flip side to this is
No
like...
little Norman Wisdom running around.
Uh,
Not to, I don't know, glomp on the low-hanging swamp, but like
well, should we glom straight onto the next questions about that?
Yeah, I could say something about the character design in
Oh, yeah.
It's very good.
It's very good.
Also, but you don't have a choice.
You do. You choose who you want to value out of the set of people. And I think,
true.
And because it's got such a good line in Cowboys at Bad Posture of every gender and ethnicity that I find myself sort of drawn. Like if I happen to get like a random character or an optimal set of equipment on like one of the cool cowboys, because they are in there. There are a few. Well, when I say cool cowboys, I mean specifically edgy boys, edgy cowmen. Like there's a bandana, cool dark coat guy, and these
are the legendary characters.
No, in the higher
randomized
tier sets
right.
of the randomized characters,
Yeah.
you do get the occasional cool man TM, and I really hope they die. Like I don't mind playing them if I have to, but it's like, God, I hope I get eaten by bees or something kind of very unfortunate and avoidable.
Yeah, it's true actually, because you roll a bunch of different characters and you buy one of or more of them. Rather than get just given a single character to pick. And I do tend to choose the ones that I like the look of and then discard their equipment. I don't care what equipment they have. I care about them being cheap and I care about them looking cool.
Yeah. Like I sometimes the names and the characters create a character that's very, very evocative and I get very sad when they die. So last night, or no, maybe the night before last.
How's your accountancy firm going?
They're dead. I lost Gustava Landsverk, who was a woman with like a terrible stooped posture who sort of slung around a scoped rifle. And in our first outing, myself and friend of pod, Paul Canavin, we had an incredible kind of run and got all 4 bounties out, which we'd never done before, like real kind of proper. And this felt like the beginning of a partnership. Next game, we had an unfortunate accident involving someone shooting me in the head from really far away. And that was the end of Gustava Landsverk. But something about the name and the, like, I don't know, it's such a distinctive silhouette and not a character you'd ever see anywhere near, like, playable in games, that I was very glad to spend that evening of
I got a
her life.
Very badass looking lady, who unusually had a nickname, which most of the characters don't. Bang Bang Kane. Yeah, she died in the swamp. Yeah. Goodbye to her. That was sad.
my friend Dan has an incredible character who is one of the kind of cool, high-tier, edgy men, kind of camo suit, mega cowboys, and his name is Kirk Jeans.
Oh, wow.
G-E-A-N.
Yeah, just like the trousers. Like, it's so good.
You should be on the squad for a Japanese football game.
Yeah,
Circa
yeah,
1990.
exactly. Like, it's perfect because it's like, it's halfway to cool name, so it actually made the whole character cool because it's like,
So like what is
So you can
non-American saying what is a cool American name?
it's a sleeve McDykel for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's like that Japanese.
Yeah, it's a real Bront.
Shall we move on to the swamp question? Thank you.
Buckle up, boys.
Take me home, Swamp Daddy.
Well, it's a little, it takes it in a little different direction.
Oh.
So Martin Frank, asked a question on Twitter. I couldn't be bothered to copy and paste it to this document, so I'm just going to paraphrase it. He is tempted by Hunt Showdown because we won't fucking shut up about it, but he thinks it'll be too demanding of his time, and he wonders if there is a different game that fills that casual cursed swamp niche.
I mean, so we're talking specifically swamps here, not like survival.
Yeah, this is the thing. Is it the swamp you want or the?
I think it is the swamp you
Open
want because it's
shooting.
a unique aesthetic experience. Swamp hunt, right? It's going to always be called fucking swamp to me.
Yeah. I don't know if you can extract an experience from that which isn't hellish in some way. I think that would be a disappointment.
Yeah, and it's so because it is so integral in a way that kind of. Like,
I don't know that it is that demanding of time, though.
It's only because you want to play more. You don't have to.
Yeah, it's good.
It's because I've got a terrible fucking life-ruining addiction to it now. It's not because.
Yeah, it is very generous with giving you access to guns that you might not actually unlock the ability. All you unlock is the ability to reliably buy things for yourself. You don't unlock the ability to use things.
Yeah.
It's a really crucial distinction, actually.
And also,
designers.
I mean, there's a great leveler, which is a bullet to the brain kills anybody in the game.
Yeah, and sometimes people will just fucking step on some glass and a bee woman shreds them. Yeah. Like, like, that's the other great equalizer.
Yeah.
I think in terms of other games that have had similarly set levels, like, I think Left 4 Dead 2 has some sort of bayou-y, swampy zombie thing.
It does. Yeah.
Like, but it's obviously a generation earlier, at least a generation earlier tech-wise. I can't think of anything that really matches it because the thing I would say about it is obviously like getting a nighttime or a dusk mission or a match in Hunt is a very specific feeling, but its most effective horror for me is actually like, it's very effective, like noon gothic, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
Like it can create a gothic atmosphere and genuine horror in bright sunlight in the middle of the day.
Well, it washes out with all the colour, doesn't it?
And you can be seen from far away. There's so many different parts of it. And the monsters are still horrible in the daytime. Like, it's, and it's like, and in some ways it's worse to know that horse over there will scream at you. Like,
yeah.
And that's I can't think of very many other games that have achieved, I can't think of very many other horror properties that have reliably achieved that. Like, good sort of, like not relying on the fact that we
Oh,
inherently find darkness to be spooky as a trope is kind of interesting. Like Midsummer.
I mean, you also
Resi 7 was bio,
right? But that also marks the series' full on transition to action game, right?
True.
Like it's I guess that is an example of zombie blasting horror during the daytime in a spooky place.
It's not always
summertime shooting.
Maybe even something like Generation Zero is actually sort of along the lines. You can play it co-op, and it's not quite as
it's
horrific.
A lot more relaxing.
It's probably an easier onboarding experience than Hunt, which has
you're not
some
playing
intricacies
against
to it.
people. You're PvP.
Yeah, there's. I mean, I would say if you wanted the single player version of this, there is Stalker. There is always Stalker.
There's always Stalker.
And then there are big robot games. So Tolva.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and there's. I mean, I think. The Stalker comparison goes to a certain point though, although I would say, I don't want to just wank on about how good Hunt is, but the reason it's so good is it feels really singular.
Yeah.
Like it is a mix of things that aren't really anywhere else. Like that particular refinement and condensation of survival shooting, really tight kind of level design and such a unique setting for this kind of thing. And the setting being kind of integral to that design. It has the Battlefield 1 thing of you move the setting to any other time period and you have to start accounting for weapons that are different. Like the scale of its map is perfect for it being a Western, because that's how far you can expect these guns to shoot. It's a very different game if it's Stalker with Kalashnikovs and stuff. That's Tarkov. I mean, Tarkov is one of the other games in this category.
Yeah.
But Tarkov is definitely not the easy onboarding alternative to Hunt. It's the opposite way around. So, like, Tarkov is far more hardcore and much more difficult to get into.
Craig Pearson wrote a good thing on Rock Paper Shotgun about Tarkov this week, which might be worth putting in the show notes because it's fun. Like it.
Oh yeah, I did read that about finding bog roll, wasn't it?
Yeah, finding bog roll is his jam in the game, because it's a game where anything you get out of the map is kind of toss it up as your score, and bog roll's his thing.
Have you guys played Remnant from the Ashes?
No.
Okay. Well,
is that a this kind of game?
It's a co-op shooty game set in a post-apocalypse with quite inventive looking enemy design. But I haven't played it. But people who have heard me bang on about Hunt have suggested I try it. So maybe that is a slightly less hardcore.
Alex, I just realised that you said Resi 7. I thought you said Resi 5. When you were talking Resi. Resi 7 is a different proposition. Yeah, in terms of like daylight horror.
Yeah, but there's a lot of daylight from what I played of 7, but I couldn't play that much because I was too scared.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Resi 7, which is the first person, you're in a shitty place in the swamp.
And there is action in it, but it's a story.
It's just too fucking scary. It's the good thing about Hunt is you're there with your mates and...
I went in some water and there were nasty things in the water and I just thought, that's that.
Yeah, that's sort of true of Hunt as well, but sometimes the nasty things are ducks.
The worst,
I kind of inured myself mostly to the actual kind of explicit horror elements of Hunt now. I'm mostly terrified of just disappointing Jim, really. That's the worst thing. I'm like, should I take the shot? He says patiently, without any hint of annoyance, if you can get the headshot, I take the shot. I always miss.
Take the headshot.
I like.
Oh God.
Oh, that's disappointing, Dad, right there.
He's never shown it. He's such a nice man. Like, I don't know why he still plays with me.
I loved the fight you and I got into the other day in Hunt, where we were staking out this place. We've meticulously figured out what direction people might come from, and really applying that learning, dad's learnings, you know what I mean? We I laid a trap and stuff, and we were right. And despite being right, and despite getting the drop on someone, I failed to hit them with 2 consecutive headshots. I died. Then you ran around the person that was like trying to loot me or something and shot them. Then you ran away, and then the remaining person on their team got attacked by 3 hellhounds. Oh, yeah. And you had to try and shoot them once while they were standing in the open trying to club hellhounds to death, and you missed all 3 times.
Yeah, we did kill them eventually.
And you did, yeah. Like then you chased them, but it was like,
but it was a humiliation. Absolutely. There is. I mean, the thing is in Hunt, sometimes shooting people in Hunt is difficult because the ranges are difficult, and there's weapon drift as well down the scope, and it's hard because people are moving a lot and you need to get a headshot in order to definitely fucking kill them. And so often, I'll engage people and I'll miss. I'll be like, I won't be irritated about it because I know I'm just not good enough. Yeah. And there's kind of a sense of relief in that. But there are circumstances where even me with my very limited ability should have absolutely been able to fucking kill somebody. I'm just spamming bullets into the fucking trees, into ducks, into anything that's not a head of a human. Awful. Really.
And there are moments as well where though it does go well and you actually get the kill and you're like, yes, it's always like this for me. This is the bar I should aspire to. Like where it swings the other way and you're like, oh, I can do this. And it's a lie as well.
We got murdered by, me and Jim got murdered by 2, people who are, you can see after the match has ended, after you've been killed, how many levels above you they were. There's a couple of arrows, and they were 2 levels above us. And they just fucking nailed us. And it was like being taken out by a hit squad from Mossad. It was so professional. And then we booted up another game and we're playing it. We see these 2 characters sort of like titting around in the distance. And we're like, hang on, those are the exact 2 same characters that we just got murdered by. So we stalked them throughout the map. And then we executed a perfect revenge upon them. And, I felt incredibly good. So blissfully good. Headshotted the guy with the legendary character who's all decked out in like voodoo gear.
Oh yeah, the Bone Doctor.
Yeah, and he was jumping at the time. So actually, he jumped into my bullet. But,
so you were going to miss.
No, I mean, he was jumping repeatedly in order to try and get a shot over a fence, so I was able to nail him. But
yeah, I played for the first time with friend Dan and Greg the other day, and I hadn't played with them. They're both high level, and they played more hunt than me. And we had this first thing where we came across a team of, I think it was a team of 3 fighting a team of 2, but one of the 3 had already died, and it turned into this very cagey sort of standoff. We could see the 2 teams sort of running around repositioning in, I think it was Alice Farm or somewhere like that. And we moved up, and it was the most incredible, I've never had a fight like it in Hunt. It was the most professional, like we did the hit. And it was complete fucking luck. I was using a Springfield for the first time, which is like a breech loaded single shot rifle. First shot kills one member of the other team. Then Greg fires once, one of their other ones dies. Then I reload, aim, fire, and a third one dies. And, 3 shots have been fired, 3 kills. Dan runs up and lobs a dynamite into a roof where we know the fourth shooter is, and that blows up and kills them. And it was like, and then there's like the sort of like Kurt, like, good job guys, that was nice and clean. Like I fucking did that on purpose. like I knew that was going to be the outcome, and it's always like this when you play with me. And now, I mean, obviously I do want to play with them again if you're listening to this, but like, I definitely can't repeat that. And need that to be kind of like, but I sort of enjoyed the moment of like, oh, this is what it feels like if you, I don't know what aspect, what role luck plays in that sort of thing, and to what extent the whole game is sort of gambling with the occasional triumph feel. But then again, I've played with people who really know what they're doing, and you do reliably get out with the bounties, and you do reliably achieve stuff, I think. So, yeah.
I think actually the game I played with you, which ended fairly ignominiously in protracted flight, because
that was an amazing ending, actually.
Well, I didn't know whether you enjoyed it at all. I thought it was fantastic because we got near the extraction point. It's being camped by 2 enemies, and you can scan when you have the bounties to see if there's anybody in front of you. I was just like, I'm just going to scan here. Oh, there's enemies. And then as I said that, Chris got his head blown off. But unfortunately, he was in a clearing, and they were kind of they had perfect eyesight on it. There wasn't going to be a way I could really get you up.
Yeah. And so actually, the only other necessary context is we had just done a perfect ambush.
Yes.
Of the people who actually had the bounties. So we ambushed them, and then we kind of gambled on, we might be the only people left, because we had, it was actually competent, like we took them down. And then, the next river we were crossing,
bang.
Like, oh, they're actually bang, like, and then I'm down.
But then, so I kind of faffed around trying to work out whether I could lure them away or what I could do to get
4 bullets left.
Yes. So in the end, I just ran, halfway across the map to a different extract. But all the time, Chris is guiding me using the map like a rally driver, like a rally driver. What are they called? A rally driver co-driver? Yeah, navigator, yeah. Go left here, turn right at the dead horse, And
it was funny because we gambled on because you backed up and they didn't move, and you backed up and they didn't move, and they were obviously like looking at my body without taking the bounty, that kind of game of chicken. And it all came down to, they can get my bounty and they can just leave.
Yeah.
They could just take their losses and go. And watching their little lightning marker on the map, when we realized they were going to get greedy, they were going for you as well.
Yeah.
And so suddenly it's like they're 30 seconds behind you. It's a 30-second timer to escape in the boat. And they were just behind you the whole time, begging. I was praying for them to run into something like a fireman.
Lucky I set off so much aggro on the way up to there. They had to plow through that afterwards.
Oh, the only times I got what's going on? No, was when you got sort of tangled in a fight or something, and you're fighting your way through, and it's like, no, don't run, fuck. But yeah, that was really exciting. It was exciting for me because.
So did you get out?
I did get out, yeah, but they were right behind me as well, so weren't quite at the point where they could shoot me, but I could hear them.
I think one shot got fired or something. Yeah. We could bang on about it, but what a game.
What a game. You should play it with us, Alex.
I need to play with you next week, actually, for reasons.
Oh, cool. Okay. Let's play it next week.
Well, or this week.
Or this week.
There is sport this week. Still.
Yeah, we should do some of that.
Sure.
Great. Any more questions?
No.
In that case, that's all the questions that we've got time for. If you'd like to send us a question.
That's not technically true.
What?
We haven't any more questions. So it's not, those are all the questions we've got time for. Those are all the questions.
That is true. Yeah. Well, look, do you want me to outro this podcast or not, Alex? All right. I've got my particular way of beginning that. I think it helps people know what's happening. Like, this is the point where people can traditionally skip or wait to find out what car crashes is going to be. And we haven't been drinking this evening, so I was feeling pretty good about this one. But I'm glad that you've ensured that it is now this. You know what I mean? This is your doing. This is your salted
my
field.
gift to you all.
Well, if that is certainly questions that were. They've gone now.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, questions. Goodbye. If you'd like to send us a question so that we can talk about Hunt Showdown instead, feel free to email us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet us at Crate and Crowbar. And I'd like to give special credit to Martin Davies this week. You've been a very good boy and you actually checked Twitter for questions.
Yeah.
Well done.
Very good boy.
No problem.
Yeah, excellent work. You may now leave the mud.
I don't want to.
Oh, I didn't realize you were just drawing attention to something you were happy about. It was a brag this entire time.
It was a brag,
I like to think there's a kind of frisson of ambiguity about the whole scenario.
Yeah, I think that's why it has a sort of, it's a cheeky confession rather than there's a confessional with the hint of
I'm stuck in the muck, but I like muck.
Exactly. Yeah. Why do we always end up at, like, you know, the weird end of the Beano every time? So there's Twitter as well, isn't there? If you want to send us questions, and I welcome questions at this point about any of the things you just heard. They invite them, if anything. If you would like to, find the podcast in sort of video form, let's call it still image with audio, then you can do so on a YouTube channel at youtube.com/Crate and Crowbar. Our community hangs out on Discord, which Alex repeatedly refers to as a forum, which is very, very cute.
It's a bulletin board.
An online forum.
Exactly. It's a forum that moves very quickly, so you're going to have to be quick and snaffle it
You
up.
don't have to refresh the page at all.
No, it does it itself. And that's available on Discord, which is a funny name because it actually brings people together.
It's bizarre name. What a bunch of idiots.
Right. Well, congratulations to them because they've facilitated a lovely community which you can locate on our Discord server, which is accessed via a hyperlink from our website at www.crateandcrowbar.
http://www.
You know what? Fuck you, Alex. Do you want to do the rest of this outro?
Yes. Where do we get to? We've done Discord. Perhaps you would also like to support us via Patreon, a platform for supporting creative people like us and many others. Thank you so much to those who already patronize us.
It's coming apart.
It's not nice being patronized, is it, Alex?
Patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar.
Oh, he's almost got it.
Individually, you may follow us. Marsh Davies is at
Marsh Davis.
On the Twitter.
Yes.
And Chris is on the Twitter at
C Thurston. CTHURSTEN.
Well,
if you're nasty.
I'm doing it well. I'm doing all the steps.
Yeah, you are.
You're doing very well.
And I'm at rotational. ROT88. Well, that's about it.
That's what we say, isn't it, at the end of the podcast? That's about it.
Have I missed anything out?
No.
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm going to say it again.
Thank you. Everybody.
What? Christ.
Oh, God.
It's ending now.
That's good. You see, you got to end on a note of chaos.
Well, we're at it.
Would you like to hear a new voice I've been doing?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm stuck in the muck. Oh no. Oh no, I'm stuck in the muck. I'm stuck in the muck. Oh no.
I didn't know you were into making 1980s comedy characters.
That's what I do all day.
Yeah, I think you should introduce the podcast in this voice.
No.
It's very good.
Welcome.
It sounds like the voice that you, if you were a Tory MP, that would be on the sex tape that disgraces you. Oh no.